Reading this morning from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 13. It's been very ecstatic, these series of verses. Atak pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha svanustatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam atak pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha svanustatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Sound familiar, doesn't it? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. The 4 castes are the intelligent class, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes, Prabhupada doesn't usually use pejorative words like this, but here he's using it. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. Then again, there are 4 orders of life, namely student life, household life, retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, in italics, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. This institutional function of human society is known as the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varnashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for the artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, namely realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya priti or sense gratification, as already discussed here and before, the institution of the Varnashram, is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In Kali Yuga, or in the age of coral, this artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well that the divisions of castes, there he is again, castes, and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high-thinking self-realization, and not for any other purpose. Paragraph. Herein, the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashram system, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.13. And a purport. So a little backtracking. or context. This is chapter 2, and chapter 2 is an answer to questions found in chapter 1. The chapter 1 is an assembly of sages in Naimisharanya who recognize that Kali Yuga has begun. Kali Yuga begins shortly after the departure of Krishna. In other words, there's this juncture of time, a sandhi, and then after this yuga comes that yuga. So the Kali Yuga has begun, and the sages knew Krishna departed. That's a signal. Kali Yuga is about to begin. And they, being sages, they were interested not in their welfare, they're interested in the welfare of entire population on planet Earth, meaning human society, and how human society can benefit positively or negatively all the other population of living entities on the planet. And the system that they knew was a continuation of the system from the previous yuga. In the previous yuga, the system was yajna. So the sages had made a decision that in order to counteract the negative influence of this age of Kali, which was just beginning, their plan was to have a 1,000-year sacrifice, which means as soon as one is done, the next one has already begun. So continuing yajnas for 1,000 years. For elevation of society, for creating auspiciousness, so that all living entities can benefit. Meaning, benefit means their spiritual connection will be more secured, and when spiritual connection is more secured, the necessities of life are also provided by the source of everything. I mean, this was a very clear understanding. These sadhus, or these brahmanas, were Vaishnavas. They were adherents to the process of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they used a method that they knew, which was yajna. So while they were beginning the early stages of their yajna performance, lo and behold, here comes Suta Goswami, not at our door, but Suta Goswami. And Suta Goswami had just heard the 7-day narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami narrating to Maharaj Parikshit. Suta Goswami was in the audience, and as soon as Suta Goswami entered, for the reason that he had heard the Bhagavatam, the hearing of the Bhagavatam is at a different location than Naimisharanya. So he meandered from Sukratal to Naimisharanya, and when he came there, they stood. They honored him because he was the son of Romaharsha and Suta, one of the senior-most disciples of Vyasadeva. So he's a notable person, plus he just heard Srimad Bhagavatam. So they wanted to hear they stopped their yajna, and they wanted to hear from Suta. That's the scene at the beginning of chapter 1. And they didn't say, could you summarize what you heard from Shukadev? Rather, they asked pointed questions. 6 questions. And then chapter 2 begins, the answer to those 6 questions. And the first of the 6 questions is what we're discussing now. And the first of the 6 questions is, in all of the Vedas, they're very, very, very vast. We know that very well. Could you summarize the essence of the vast Vedas, please? And so he is in the process of doing. And the very first verse speaks of paradharma. And so rather than retelling verse number 6, here we are in verse number 13. And again, the topic is in dharma. And the dharma in this case is varnashram dharma. Point. Varnashram dharma is not the topmost. It's not paradharma. Rather, option B, varnashram dharma is meant to organize society. It's a social system. It's a social system that helps people that aren't on the paradharma level to come to the paradharma level. And 4 and 4, the varna and ashram, 4 of each. And when those who are followers of varnashram, when one becomes a follower of varnashram, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's discussion with Sanatana Goswami, this is where civilized human life begins. We'll say it negatively. Before varnashram, it's not civilized. It's something. Two-legged animal. And there's a lot of two-legged animals in the world. And that means they do not accept. Now, Prabhupada is making 2 statements in the purport. One is the whole of the world has this structure. And then another is they don't have this structure. Because they're not organized that way. They're not consciously, or they're abusing that system. Now that's in India, but it's not only in India. The abuse of the system, the Brahmanas are a little snobby, and, we're a special group, and don't think that you can become part of our special group because you have to be born a Brahmana to become in our special group. That's not what Scripture says. That's what the some persons in that group say. Or Kshatriyas. You can only be a Kshatriya if. No, it's Kali Yuga, and all kinds of people who are Shudras, or lower than Shudras, are in the position of leaders. Because they have other qualifications, like they're powerful, or they're charismatic, or they're politicians. They know how to get followers. Not qualified, but they know how to get people huddled around an idea. And, you get votes, and so now they're in charge, at least for a little while, and then people don't like what they're doing, and so they get another person to nominate and elect. So that's, the democracy system is not a Vedic system. But in the Vedic system, the person who is the Kshatriya has qualities of a Kshatriya, and then the training of a Kshatriya, and the character of a Kshatriya. Without listing what those are, they're found in Bhagavad Gita and many other places. So by guna and karma, not by janma. Both Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, and Shudra, by guna and karma. Like a classic. Prahlad Maharaj was born in a demoniac family, but he didn't have the character of a demon. His father wanted to train him to become a nice asura. Divide and conquer, and become powerful like me. He wanted his son to be like the Father. And that's natural. But because Prahlad heard from Narada, even while in the womb, he heard from Narada, so he wasn't like that. He wasn't like his father. He was very bold, not intimidated at all. So, back to the purport. Those who are civilized, they're not fixed yet on the Paradharma platform. Those persons are encouraged within the Vedas, because what's the essence and summary of all the Vedas? Follow Varnashram. And with what aim or purpose? Swanustatasya dharmasya, samsadhir haritoshanam. Swanustatasya dharmasya, samsadhir haritoshanam. Hari toshanam, satisfy Hari. The purpose, so the 4 and 4 are meant to combinedly, according to my nature, someone else's nature, etc., work cooperatively in a social structure that has one aim. Hari is to be pleased. So that one aim, that Hari is to be pleased, guess what? That's bhakti. But supposing I'm not at the platform of a paradharma or shuddha bhakta, supposing, then honoring the differences and cooperating within those differences towards one purpose, haritoshanam, and acknowledging the structure, the social structure, because social means both spiritual and material. You know, the disposition of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the disposition of ashram, brahmachari, grihastha. So being respectful and honoring the duties of, if I'm a householder, these are my duties. If I'm a brahmachari, householder's life is not my duty. My duty is this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding what one's duty is and doing that duty for what purpose? One purpose, pleasing Hari. Following vidhis for one purpose. Hari is to be pleased. And so, I'll read the translation. Oh, best among the twice born. It is therefore concluded, so this is kind of a summary of the previous verses, starting with verse number 6. It is concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging duties prescribed for one's own particular occupation according to castes, divisions, and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. It's very clear. Now, accomplishing that, that's a task. As many devotees know, when Prabhupada was at a very elderly stage of life and his health was failing, by inspiration, it was, Tamal Krishna Maharaj primarily gets the credit, or blame. He encouraged Prabhupada, you're a warrior. You belong on the battlefield and battling the Asuric population, and by your power and divinity and preaching and your influence, don't give up your body this way, give up on the battlefield. Prabhupada's chivalrous spirit was awakened. Yes, I'll go. His body was a wreck, but I'll go. And so he explicitly said there are two purposes. One, in his words, half of my mission is unfulfilled. Books, transcendental teachings, it's there. Unfulfilled, establishing Varnashram. So he explicitly, he wanted to go to the West. Explicitly, he wanted to go to Gita Nagari. And later it was understood, because a document was found that after his departure, of Prabhupada's speech, which he was planning to deliver at the Gandhi Memorial, which didn't happen, speaking about the way to honor a great person. This is the eulogy of Mahatma Gandhi in his funeral. The way to honor a great person is not name a street after him, or name a building after him, or name a village or a town or something after him. That goes on. See it all over the place, all over the country. Such and such street or building or something. George Bush Parkway or whatever it's called. Something. Or Battleship or something. But recognizing the values that this person held, establish a place that demonstrates the values that this person held. Since Gandhi was such a lover of Bhagavad Gita, that place should be called Gita Nagari. It's right in this essay, or that speech, which he never delivered. So Gita Nagari, this was later, when the document was found, it was called the Gita Nagari Prophecy. It's a little history, but there was a point in time when Prabhupada indicated that the temples that were well established should now consider purchasing a rural property, because the centers were all in urban areas. So a rural, not suburban, but rural place where the principles of Varnashram can be established. Cow protection, simple living, high thinking. It was a slogan that he kept repeating. Cow protection, simple living, high thinking. Live off the land, etc. So in New York, the leader in New York decided, let's do it. Long story, Gita Nagari was purchased, but it wasn't called Gita Nagari, it was called the New York Farm. From the time that Srila Prabhupada was planning to visit the New York Farm, he was calling it, and it became known thereafter as Gita Nagari. And the history behind it was, the devotees didn't know until after this document was found, which was after Prabhupada's departure. Where did that name Gita Nagari come from? It's Prabhupada's vision of honoring Bhagavad Gita by establishing a community where people lived according to the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. It's really like seamlessly clear. So, very keenly, Prabhupada desired. It's right here in Canto 1, Chapter 2, Varnashram. I mean, he could have used some other term, but it's a term that he used again and again and again. It's civilized society. And civilized society has a higher aim. They understand the higher aim, what some Siddhi Haritoshanam. Organize yourselves according to guna and karma in different divisions, in different ashrams, according to your nature and your situation in life. Accept and honor, that's my position, and another has their position, and I don't envy them or compete with them or want to become other than who I am. So that's, the envious, absent structure of society. and achieve spiritual perfection. Now, there was a question yesterday from the student. Is it possible to achieve perfection? Is there such a thing? Are there such people? Of course. Is it rare? Of course. Is the top of the pyramid less common than the base of the pyramid? Sure. But there's a peak of the pyramid. There's a destination for those who are followers of Dharma and Paradharma or Varnashram Dharma or the principles of bhakti within life. There's progressive stages that unfold when one is very carefully receiving and living according to those teachings that one has heard. And that's Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to end. Srila Prabhupada is sitting in Vrindavan with the desire to fulfill the instruction of his spiritual master. He was already a gifted writer. He was acknowledged as being a gifted writer. He was given the title Bhaktivedanta, which was a system that Bhaktisiddhanta established to different people according to accomplishments. Titles were given along with their name. So that was the title given to him. But he was a learned person from way before, and gifted writer. So he's sitting in Vrindavan, making commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, envisioning who knows what will happen, but his expectation wasn't, I'm going to build an international organization. He wanted to give the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. And so he was just doing that service. Certainly had a vision of where it could go, and by the grace of Krishna, it did go. And here we are, part of that vision. Let's see if there's some discussion. Canto 1, Chapter 2, yeah.
Thank you for the. My question was, you said that Prabhupada still has this vision of Varnashram Dharma. The first part was done, the second part is still there. How do we try to move towards that? Because now the gender roles are very different. And so should the knowledge come first, because to understand that everything has to be done to please Hari, and then go into to try to establish something like that?
You know the answer. We make a social structure and then Krishna suddenly appears. It doesn't work that way. That's not the system. The system is you hear from, people are uncivilized. Have to hear. And the hearing helps one who's uncivilized become civilized. And then as the person who progressively becoming civilized, how to organize oneself, or those who like this hearing activity. Prabhupada started the hearing and chanting before he started the social structure. No, the social structure is there. So there's brahmacharis, and there's grahastas, and there's some strictures for the brahmacharis. So but it wasn't like that. He was building the social model. He was based on hearing and chanting. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Does that answer your question?
So Maharaj, we focus on,
This microphone isn't doing anything.
so we just focus on that, Guru Maharaj, not like go into the Varna, like there should be Brahmins, there should be Kshatriyas, threshold?
Well, naturally there are, but the clarity of what that structure can look like or should look like, that comes later. You know, Gopal isn't a grahasta. He's a student, and he does what students do, and he's learning. Besides, as academic, he's learning and he's learning. So it's a stage of life. Grahasta is a stage of life. At some point, some young man or young lady may decide, I'd like to be married and I'd like to have a family and all that stuff. So there's structures, but it's resting upon the sound vibration. So Krishna comes first, and then comes the structure. And it's a natural structure, but Krishna comes first. Anything else? Okay. You had something. No. Okay. 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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai.